Okay, so let's get started on our final. So we're going to start towards the bottom. And, you know, if you needed new water, hopefully you got it. If not, just go grab it. We didn't make, my water cup isn't too horrible. So get started. So we're going to be starting, it's if you have the visual, have it in front of you because that's really helpful. And we're going to be starting with this. So what I usually do is I start at the bottom. Okay, so because again, I am left-handed, I will be starting on my right side, working my way across. If you need to, being like, oh, sorry, I'm left-handed, I start on my right side. If you're right-handed, then you probably will want to start on your left side. If you want to do exactly what I'm doing, then you can start and just kind of like make sure you don't smear your way across. But that's what I recommend. So for me, I will be starting on my right side so I don't smear and work my way across. And what I usually do is like I start with a chunk like up to here, then I kind of work my way across. And then I work my way back up this way, kind of like a zigzag. But because, this is practice, if you'd rather just do it the same way that I do, feel free, or you could start on the opposite side if you're right-handed and then work your way to this diagonal. So just as an option for you guys. I always like to mention that because we all have different, we paint with different hands. So there's an option there. So let's load with some pink. And we're gonna be using pink. We're gonna be using our red. We're gonna be using our yellows for this one, for this layering, okay? And it's gonna be just like a mix all over. So I'm gonna start with my pink, start right at the bottom here. And remember, these are looser, so they're gonna be faster, especially because we have to fill the centers. Okay, and because we are, mixing colors that are bleeding together, I'm not super worried about, the rinsing my brush out. So don't have to think that you have to keep rinsing it out. Like I might just tip or dab it into the water just a little bit and then go into my yellow, okay? So I'm gonna grab some deep yellow, less watered down. Remember how I showed you before, having less water will make it move less into the pink and just create that outer kind of circle working its way out. And it's going to keep working its way out, which is awesome. And so it'll dry like completely different from where you started it. And it like slowly keeps moving, which is cool. Okay, so going back to my pink, I'm going to have some hiding. So I use 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of hiding behind that one. Okay, so it's like receding. And I will go in with a little bit of that yellow again and add it. So now what I want to do is I'm going to mix a little bit of red with my little bit of deep yellow. And if you need a color swatch here, get one of your scrap pieces and we will kind of see what orange. We're trying to go for like an orange, like that, okay? Give or take, doesn't have to be perfectly the same as mine. Basically, we're just looking for an orange. And we're gonna find that we're gonna be creating multiple oranges, like, because we're gonna add in some pink and it's just gonna be a mix and blend of colors. And that's what I love about this one so much. Okay, so I'm gonna add and create. And you're working your way into spaces a little bit, but like, again, just adding some little space between some of your petals, some will overlap, and this little bit of gap in certain places will help define the full flower. Okay, rinse your brush a little, and then I'm going to go into my pink, and I'm going to use that as the contrast color and let it bleed. Okay. And then go back to my pink towards the bottom here, and it's a little bit lighter. Because that one's a little bit more watered down, I'm going to create like 2 at a time. That. And then for my contrast color, this time I'm going to actually use my red. And like kind of let it bleed. When you notice like an area, like it's really light throughout like a certain, like a fragment or section, I always like to go in and add a little bit more depth in certain areas. So for example, down in this very corner, I'm going to add something darker. So I'm going to go in with a little red and kind of hug into the corner like that. And I use like 6 brush strokes to get in there, but left a few little gaps. And for the contrast color, I'm going to use a little bit of that deep yellow, and it'll end up kind of being a little orange. I'll come back to these other places once I have more flower fill. But I like to just do like some of the bigger florals and kind of work my way in layerings and whatnot. Okay, so going back to your yellow, I mix in a little bit of red because you get like, so you get something like this. So that's like, it's not the pure yellow, but it has a little bit of that red in it. Okay. So I think it's considered like a yellow orange almost. Okay, and I'm going to add flower right here to, okay. My contrasting color will be pink. Work your way out and around. Then I'm going to add a little bit more red to my yellow and create more of that orange again. And this one will be kind of like hiding, kind of like a fan, or like like, you know how like with the sun, it's like rising, so you see half of it. Kind of like think of that. And for the contrast color, I'm again going to use some pink. And there. Okay, so go back to my pink, a little more watered down. We want to create a little bit more lightness again. So let's just add, sometimes I create like a few brush strokes to fill areas like this to make it look like there's like a flower hidden, you know? And it's just fun to create like different sizes. So this one is maybe a little bit smaller. Like that. And then I'll do one that's a little bit bigger, but over here. Okay. Okay, so for those ones, their contrast color, I'm going to actually go in with some cadmium yellow. So the other yellow that I haven't used. Let it bleed out a little bit. So while I have that color, I'm going to use that as my flower base and add a little color here. Right there. For that contrast color, I'm actually going to use orange. So I'm going to use some of that deep yellow red mix and use that. Okay. So while I have that orange, let's keep it in our brush, and I'm going to add a little bit more red to it to get like a deeper orange. and add that down towards the bottom here. And then one kind of peeking out at the top here. And then I'm going to use my pink for my contrasting color. Going back to my light pink, so water it down. Kind of peeking out like right there. And smaller one down here. And, you know, when you touch the other colors, that's okay. Like, for example, I just touched this one and there's a little orange that's still wet and it bleeds into it. That's fine. Like you're color bleeding essentially throughout. So that's fine. For your contrast color, go in with your cad yellow. And then I'm going to mix some deep yellow with actually like a little bit of pink to get another kind of like pink orange color. And then I'm going to dip it in my water to like lighten it a bit. Okay. Sometimes you don't always have to add a contrast color. So I'm just going to leave that one like it is. And I'm going to add it kind of hugging this yellow flower. Okay, so I want a little bit of a deeper color. So I'm going to go in with my pink, so it's a little deeper. And I want to add it down here, just kind of fill the space a little bit with a few brush strokes. Fill the space a little. I like to keep white space, so don't fill all your white space. Just adding again those like deeper colors will help create some contrast throughout. Okay. And then do one more before it dries. How about in here, like that. And then go back to my cad yellow as my contrast color. Okay. Let's go back to our orange, lighten it up. So add more water. Just a little bit more yellow like that, I guess. This one's like poking through the side like that. And sometimes I create like little buds. So like something like this, where like we did with the blue ones, kind of poking out. Okay. So hopefully by the time like you're done with this, you'll have just good practice with, and this is pink, now I'm using lighter, with creating some loose florals. I think doing so many at a time will help you like get a little bit looser, and hopefully by the end of the layering, you will feel like a little bit more comfortable with it. Because I do realize like sometimes doing things looser can actually be such a challenge for people. Because structure, people want structure, like they want to know exactly where something goes. And this is like gives you, it's directional, but like you have to place it, you know, like in random places. So it's not just like put this here, put that there. Okay. Taking more pink, less watered down, so it's a little darker. Add some petals down there. Guess I'll add one or two down here. And I have this space right here that I want a little depth. So I'm going to go in and just add a little pink color right there. Because that yellow bled into there, I'm going to leave it. But if yours didn't bleed or have any kind of bleed, add a little bit of yellow. cad yellow to that pink. I'm going to grab some deep gold yellow and create a few brush strokes up like that. And create a flower up top here. Okay, so I'm going to start visualizing. Okay, like I feel like the highest point is a little bit over half. So I'm going to make a little bit of a marking, like right here, a little over half of like the highest angle, like for the pink flowers. So that's where like the last flower will be up there. Because then we're going to put, actually, we're trying to visualize this a little bit. Yeah, I think that's good. Give or take. It doesn't have to be perfect. So my whole point is like we want to make a mark. I'm just going to do actually halfway where my painting is. So I know like don't go any higher than that spot and we're going to start angling it. I don't want to actually make a line because you'll see the line. So we have to visualize the line. So let's go deep into this corner. And once we have that, it'll make it easier. So I'm taking some red mixed with a little yellow. And it's going to create an orange. And then for my contrast color, I'm actually going to use red. And because I still have this red, I'm going to just create a few florals with it. It's like a red orange. And it gets lighter as I'm using it because I'm running out of color. So I can go back and overlap it if I want. I guess I'll create that color up here as well. That's going to be my highest flower. And then use cad yellow as my contrast. Okay. Let's put some pink right here. Beautiful. And let's do like a little pink here. My pink got mixed with my yellow, so I gotta move it off to the side a little, so it's a little bit more pink. Okay. Let me add, I'm actually going to extend this so it goes into that yellow one a little bit. So again, remember, it's good to like fix or manipulate your flowers a little while they're still wet. And then for my contrast color, I'm going to use cad yellow and white it around like that. I'm going to grab some pink. And add a little pink right here. Notice how we're seeing it come down. Yes. And let's add some pink in this area as well. Get some deep yellow as our contrast. And then what should we do here? I think I'm just going to keep adding pink because I have a lot of yellows. So more pink. This one's like hugging behind, right? Let's do like a small one kind of hugging into the space. So what you're essentially trying to get is like a slope, right? But you don't want it to be like such an obvious, like straight, like everything's in line. Notice how like this one comes up, then it comes down, up, and then like that, right? Some texture. So that's what we're looking for. So I'm just going to add something right around here, and then I think I'll be good. And then I'll reevaluate and see if I need to go back. So I'm going to grab some deep yellow, just add it into the space. Okay. So I have a little space right here. I'm just going to grab a little light pink, have a few little markings. Again, I don't want to fill up all the white. I like the white, it gives it highlight. I like the contrast. There's some darks, lights. You can see that throughout. So that's what you're looking for. If yours is really pale, go in and like overlap a little bit more color into areas to give it just like lights and darks. So there's contrast between your flowers. I'm going to give it a little more height here, just a little bit. Adding a little yellow. Like just notice how loose that was, right? When you're getting to the end and you're just trying to like even out the space a little bit. Sometimes it really is just like a few brush strokes you add on top to look like these petals maybe coming from behind. Adding a little red to that center area. Try to see. I think I need a little more height because in this photo, I come down, but it's not like a straight down. There's like a little height. So I'm just going to add a little more height. So I'm going to grab some pink. That. Just adding a few pink flowers at the top here. That. Adding, let's see. Let's add a floral on top of this. That's a little more pink too. Hugging it. I like that. Do I like that? Yeah, I think I like that. And I'm just trying to visualize. So next, like what we want to essentially do is we will add our blue flowers kind of down this line here, leaving space, right? And if I find that there's too much of a huge gap between the pink and the blue where like the stems go, I will fill a little bit more up. If that's what I see. I'm like, ooh, I don't know, maybe that's too much. Now what we want to do is go to our blue. So what I want to do is, remember we mixed the white with the ultramarine blue. So hopefully you have a little bit more of that mixture left. If not, we can remix. Remember, we just added some white, ultramarine, and then we're gonna add a little bit more of the pure ultramarine to certain areas to create some darker blues. Okay. So we want to leave a gap because we do our petals or our stems after our petals. So I'm going to start about here. I know maybe it's like scary to do the first one and kind of just randomly kind of go down your line a little bit. Okay. So remember how it's like one, and then you use two lines around your middle line just to create like a really tight bloom. I'm going to just do this first layering of this lighter blue, and maybe go in and add a little bit more blue to the second layer, making some a little bit bigger and then some a little bit smaller. You want that variety. We will put some that are receding as well. And we can always come back to this lighter blue when we need to, just to keep adding. So that's what I like. This is a good way to show you my process of when we're doing like a grouping of something like this and we're working with multiple color tones. Like I do like a layering first to like know directionally where I'm going. So starting out like our diagonal, and then I keep layering in, more. That way, like I don't do like one chunk all the way. And then I'm like, oh, like, how am I going to line that up with whatever? Because maybe I did like it too weird up in this area, like not enough of an angle or something. And then that kind of just sets me up for failure for the rest of the painting. So it's like really working on the whole outline as a whole, building it as opposed to just one little chunk area, especially when you are using the same flower in that line or whatever you're doing. So keep that in mind. Don't really work on one specific area, especially if it's loose like this. Kind of try to work on the area as a whole. Okay, I'm going to go back and add a little bit more blue, like darker, to get it a little bit deeper, adding some contrast. We're going to like layer some like from behind. Go back and fill your brush when you need to. And I'm still mixing it in with that white mixture just to give it a little bit of that like muted color. Remember some smaller ones. That. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty. Again, and then once I start doing the stems, if I find like, oh, one would look good really right here, then I can go in and I actually can add another bloom if I need to. Okay. So for right now, I like the way this looks. And then again, I can actually, hold on. I want something darker down here. Just a little darker down there. Okay. And then I can come back. Okay, clean your brush out. Let's go to our yellow. I'm going to be using my cad yellow. And let's add the little yellow at the base of the blues. Remember, like just kind of triangle shape right at the base. Just even doing that little area, just notice the difference between that and that. Like, what a cute detail. I love it. And just keep kind of refilling as you need to. Basically making like, yeah, like an upside down triangle or a V shape, just like a V shape. underneath that blue. Okay. I'm gonna let that dry for just a minute there. I don't want the green eating into it. Okay. You know, I still manage to smear my paint. Like I have little marks here. I just can't help myself. Like I've been working from one direction to the other. So while that's drying, let's just talk about what we're doing next. So we're doing our stems, right? Basically, we're going to be using our light green, like I was saying before, but then we're going to be layering in some dark green just for some contrast throughout. So it's not all light, right? I remember those tiny like eyebrow marks that we created. We're going to do that for a few of them towards the top of the bloom head. And then we're going to look at it and see, hey, like maybe we can go in and add a few more towards the top, maybe to make it so that it doesn't seem like it's just such a straight line, so that it looks a little bit more whimsical. So if we need to add like a few like right here, you know, we can. Then after that, we will start with our little sweet peas. And I start on this side and then create my stem like we did in practice. And, you know, I create a little shape outline at the top for texture and kind of make my way down. And you'll notice how like there is differences. So like, for example, even this one, there's more petals in this one than that one. Again, I wanted them to have variation, but the gist of it is that you're creating these like textured outlines and it's tapering thinner to the stem, right? And then we add in our little green markings when they hit the stem for more detail. But there's layerings like this. It's really light here. So we're really working on our color mixing and just using like maybe lighter tones in certain areas. And like, for example, up here, smaller, like a lighter one. And then we have like a grouping of 3, and it kind of shoots off of this one here. So that gives it some height. This one's like curved this way. This one is similar to this one, but like it has like 3 at the head here. So if you find it that like doing all the variations is, you know, something that's just like too difficult, maybe stay with one or two different ones. So like maybe something more like this and maybe something more like this, as opposed to like doing like a big blob at the top, because, you know, that can get maybe a little bit like the layers can get a little bit more messy if you find that you're having issues. So I don't want you to feel overwhelmed by it. Really just keep the colors light to start, and then we add in our layers. So just to give you an overview. Okay.